And we are live. B1 Network, Brother Moses. Chump Change and Pennies is the title, but this is probably going to be from the tribe of the long winds. So I tell you, I'm still feeling that energy that I received from the Ice Cube, hyped up for me, battle between the Bay Area legends. And because I still got that good energy, I'm gonna deliver a little bit about that energy from my perspective and how it's impacting the community. And I'm hot, so you know the energy is gonna go up, and the energy is gonna go down, and then the energy is gonna go up again. Like any theatrical film, I do have content that is not. I am not the author or the originator of the content. (1870), Felician's 30-year muse enters as the woman on a rocking horse. Rocking chairs are meant to go back and forth, so I read indecision. Felician wrote artistic expression, and it mixes human and non-human characters early on. So we can unpack the symbolism of Felician ropes works pretty quickly. The non-human characters are given human functions in The Woman on a Rocking Horse. Playing instruments, her entertainment. His muse has expanded her social circle 4 years later in The Row. And in 1878, his muse is crucified in The Temptation of St. Anthony, her loyal pig, in observance. And she's centered there between caricatures for good and evil. The Temptation of St. Anthony, 1878, religious symbolism is apparent. 1878 to 1881, The Shower. The Felician's muse on toilet is satire, and characters and their offerings to music could be unpacked as well as the religious symbolism and those who seem to be worshiping his muse. See him falling out the sky to fix her crown and to touch her hair, to feed her, provide her substance as she rests in her divine femininity. I did not capture the dark turn taken next, or the title that is, but we see the Felician's muse had made her choice, and of the clergyman remain. Down goes St. Anthony. The Felician ropes Lesbos, known as Sappho, leaves little symbolism for interpretation or even satire. Yet his muse becomes lady with puppet at an unspecified date. 1891, A Gentleman and a Lady. 1896, the definitive work, Pornocrates. By 1890, he was direct as could be with Lesbos, known as Sapphire or Sappho. And he was making clear his feelings towards his muse. By 1891, Belgian artist Felician, like Felicia, but calling him a Felicia nation, where either some fella named Philip reigned over or the royal house was under a gynocracy. Felicia was the matriarch in his mind. And he painted a contrasting image than his previous works with the title A Gentleman and a Lady. By 1896, the image returns to that contemporary interpretation of an oppressed gentleman who becomes the domesticated animal his muse walks, like seen in the image of pornocrates. Examine Felician's 1878 works. Study for the temptation of St. Anthony. The temptation of St. Anthony, then behind the scenes, 1878, Felician Rose. And appeal to the masses. The evolution of his muse sequentially. From 1878 to 1881 was the shower. It represents the cleansing of his muse, the identification that she was dirty. That time period during which, in 1879, the Felician drops at a dinner of atheists. And where this happens to his muse. What happened? Well, in the illustration of Le Diabolique, the diabolic, if you read it straight, she's laid out on the floor, the curtains drawn. The siesta laid out on the floor, looked like blood splattered all on the ground. And the illustration of Le Diabolique in 1879, the desire. Look at her. She was leaning at that cross as her man chose another man. Now that's that symbol pathology. Where does the white girl lead? Well, in the Felician, the story is about immigration, really. And because she didn't choose the white men, then this suit and shining armor comes to rescue her. And that white woman is left out there to be the best love of Don Juan. And we can examine the first candidate ropes at the table with atheists, 1879, to really draw that picture. How this table that she's on she is the thing being consumed. And nobody seems to believe him. And so he paints a picture for him. And at first it used to be in whiteface. His darkest works of the pornocrat are satanic in origin. FirstArtGallery.com houses these assets for license, showing the Felician spin on romanticism, with symbolism depicting the consecration of her union with Satan. I say he chose. She was the sacrifice on the cross, and on one side she had a decision to make, because she was weighing the alternatives between good and evil, and she chose a pornocratic devil. That's what I see in his art. And as you see the sacrifice from the satanic ones, then she's the one on the altar. And oh, yes, it gets dark. And my thing is, that's what them brothers be trying to do with our black spaces. And it used to be in whiteface. I have no notes on this slide, but to tell you that the satanic origins after meeting with the atheists and how that asset it's for exchange. It was for $1,000, which they say supply and demand economics. Somebody must be willing to pay for this symbolism. In our spaces, there is no room for that sucker who has the low blow and the audacity to say online that he can't wait until the black man's daughter turns 18 so he can put his nuts on her head. And when you remove the symbolism and get straight to what the brother was trying to say, it can come off as a bit bipolar. And just because it used to be white and they turned it into whiteface, I still don't justify the pornocrates and what they're doing to our spaces. I have no notes on this slide, but to say the symbolism is apparent when he cuts beyond all that religious shit, and even if they keep it included. And one of the things that the B1 network tries to do well is prevent niggas from being that clown in whiteface. And even though it wasn't no easier when that whiteface was a protection for a nigga, he felt. We say, nigga, don't do it. But they don't listen, man. And so they want to talk about Venus and Cupid as if that's a new topic. That's just something revolutionary and something game changing. And for the most part, they're still stuck in that scene where she was in that shower. And because that's what got their focus, sometimes we do render from our slideshows to provide that bit of information. They want us to acknowledge and treat these brothers like they are La Familia. So I'm gonna give them lessons over music. Because I say we don't create coddling spaces for that, man. That's not what we need right now. So that was the making of Felicia's, which is where the conversations end up flowing to. I got another one for you, though. It's called Chump, Change, and Pennies. Thanks for joining B1, Brother Moses. This is my presentation. And you are live with the B1 Network, man. Keep it rocking. We got work to do, man. We deliver content. That was art, man. I just did an art breakdown, man. Somebody should have dropped a fire emoji or something, man. Y'all ain't shit, man. All 12 of y'all hit the like, man. And thanks for rocking with B1 Brother Moses, man. If you can still remember, man, that this is not the space for bullshit, man. I approach these conversations with the seriousness that they deserve. I approach this debate from a perspective, the focus of my discussion is our politics. We have present day issues as a result of historical compromises. So we see pennies on the dollar political gains and start thinking that those pennies on the dollar political gains are true victories produced for and by the black community. I prove it with empirical research. And I can prove that we settle for pennies on the dollar political gains despite discrimination. But in fact, even with all my research, I'm still coming up with the conclusion that those were still pennies on a dollar. On the backs of black labor, they were pennies on the dollar, and rather than us having the full dollar, historian Carrie Lee Merritt quantifies the land grant program from 1868 to 1938 as an area close to the land mass of both California and Texas. Taking Texas, in fact, dude, oh, I just threw this sweater on type of debater. But to individual Americans, virtually for free. To receive that 160 acres of government land, claimants had to complete a 3-part process. First, file an application. Second, improve the land for 5 years. Third, file for the deed of ownership. Now listen to B1 Brother Moses. I told you some smart person who said it. Look up the little student historian if you want. Do the back trace, blackpast.org if you want the direct source. Now B1 Brother Moses slide. Land grants were based on the Public Land Survey System, also called the BLM, or Black Lives Matter. We are a real movement. Bureau of Land Management is what it's actually called, but remember it through BLM. According to Wikipedia, it starts with a township on a grid. There are 36 sections. One section is approximately 1 square mile. Point number 2, there are 640 acres per section. Point number 3, that 3-part process. He said you got to go, you got 5 years on that term. Point number 4 is that if you remember your history, you know that the size of the homesteads, and what she said, 160 acres. Point number 5, what equals an acre? 1 football field. And then it gets smaller as acre of land is roughly the size of a football field. 1 acre equals 43,000, looks like 560 square feet. Football field, 48,000 square feet. So remember, it's laid out in rectangular shapes like this anyway, so keep it a buck. This is probably the simplest way to remember it, even if the numbers aren't all the way spot on. But on their estimate, 18 average sized homes equal 1 acre. 18 average sized homes equals 1 acre. 18 2,400 square foot homes fit nicely on an acre of land. That's 1 acre. And the homesteads was giving 160 acres if you know your history. All right. And so as we lock in on the grid squares, as we see here, we're going to connect this screen on the left to this right here, the Public Land Survey System. And that's how they mapped it out for us. I just pulled it off of Wikipedia and then blew it up bigger so it could say it on the screen. Let me see. Point number 5, the information used to visualize per acre value is the football field. 18 average size. 2,400 square foot homes could fit nicely on an acre. Point number 6, all right, that's where I'm at. 160 acres times 18 average size square foot homes per acre equals 2,880 homes per homestead. The fair market value of the 40-acre land grant denied the Negro is calculated as follows. For the niggas who like, what is the value of reparations? I'm gonna give it to you one time, and then I'm gonna move the fuck forward based off of their math. And if you don't believe B1 Brother Moses on this slide, just look it up or fact check me. The fair value of the 40 acres. Now remember, this whole big ass thing is a section. It's 1 square mile, of which 160 acres is this small box. There's 4 of those. 4 of those, 160 acres, because it's 640 acres. So 160 times 4 is 640 acres. And you put all of that inside of this 1 square mile. Now, what they told us was the 40 acres. That's only 4. That's a fourth of the size of a homestead. And so you got to divide that number by the 4. But shit, even if you divide that number by the 4, I'll tell you how we got there. The fair value of the grant denied the Negro is calculated as 18 homes per acre. Again, just using what they told us here. 18 average size, 2,400 square foot homes per acre, and there's 40 of them. 18 times 40. $720 homes per land grant per Negro. So what is the value of a single 2,400 square foot home in whatever area you live in? That's up to you, and the information is yours now, but the slide has been shared for those who wanted a deeper perspective or an economic perspective on the reparations argument, which is the debate we're supposed to be having and getting sharp on and staying unique with. That is where we are at. And in fact, the conversation from a reparations politics lens is the bill for land. And that's what this slide actually gets to. But again, we end up settling for chump change and pennies. And I told you that 40 acres is a compromise. The homestead was 160 acres. So we were already at a compromised position, if you understand me. Instead of 40 acres, what happens to the argument of the whole homestead was the free niggas in the first place? Man, let me change slide because I sit there all day. Who is my source? Washington Grown. What do they say when you break down that football field? See, this is an analogy. Who wants to use analogies about Sally skipping fucking seashells on the seashore? Why? When you can actually be having a debate with a real nigga. Washington Grown data assessed 12/24/2020. Read, in Washington state, the average farm size is roughly 375 acres. Not 40, that would be a compromise, my nigga. The majority of farms, 62% in our state, however, run on about 50 acres, which is where we're at in the first place. And gross, not net, less than 10,000 per year. These 24,500 smaller farms manage roughly 1.3 million acres of land each year. About 2,600 or 7% of farms in Washington manage 5.9 million acres of land. While these laws not net more than 500,000 annually, they also have high expenses. But when you look at that football field, we're not talking small potatoes. 1,500 potatoes is 1,500 potatoes, and they just talking one row. And a nigga like me only need a couple rows of potatoes. But they talking potatoes, I'm talking houses, but they talking to niggas who've been doing this farming shit 500 years before Christ existed in America. But let me get you back to the source because they always want a source. Yet, given that it effectively remained in place until 1934, well over 1.5 million white families, both American-born and immigrant, eventually profited from it, which is the Homestead Act, which is why we can only compare it to the homesteads, and the size of a homestead is 160. That 40, fuck that chump change and pennies compromise. Feel me? But we only debate our equals, all others we teach. They should be lucky we even diverted our attention to this shit, because we know on looking at the information ballot for ballot, I just showed you damn near a 30-year span of porno crates, and that's what they sound like. They sound like the black woman is now that white woman who went from a period of being able to walk on. Man, let me show you again. She was walking in elite circles, remember? First, she came in with the horse and she was undecisive, looking to the west. Now, that's the 1800s. You know, in the 1800s, we had the brother Booker T. Washington, who was also black media. And he was giving media from a different perspective, not one that trashes the black woman or blames her. He was just talking about the industrious nigga. And that white woman on that rocking horse, she was facing to the west, which meant what? She was trying to get away from her Eastern roots. Nigga, that Western ideology, nigga, was toxic. And that's what he was trying to warn that white bitch about. But instead of listening, she walked through all of the finest circles and they was trying to woo her. She had motherfuckers giving her all the things she needed as she rested in her femininity, that white woman. And she had a decision to make. But she sat down with atheists and she chose to rock with the savages, nigga. That's why she was looking to the west. I'll hit them with facts and then I'll hit them with the emotionalism. We could do both, right? Because by the end of the act, more than 270 million acres of Western land had been transferred to individuals, almost all of whom were white. That's why she was looking to the west, because that land was over there. 1800, rock with the kid. I'll keep you sequential. Because where we won't do is the argument where now they siding with the niggas on the right and we the niggas on the left And we fighting up against a whole propaganda of black women telling us, nigga, we need to fight. And these niggas is joining the other side in our face. Like that shit's okay. We got one elder and we got many elders before us, before him. But Frederick Douglass, who was also in this 1800 period, who was trying to show these niggas what the storyline really was. Because if you don't know, you should know. When we talking about acres, they talking potatoes, but I'm talking about 2,400 square foot houses, and hopefully you can see that on the screen. And as you break down what them blocks actually start looking like, if you having a reparations conversation with B1 Brother Moses. And what I did, man, when I say Hilton Head, and I'm talking about these 1800s and this 40 acres and a mule, boy, I blow them out the water with this shit. Pause. Nigga, the 1900s, this was chump change and pennies, just being able to have this farm that the descendants now fight over. Salute Khadijah, salute I Am Sugar B, salute Bro Rob, Sequoia L, Cherry. And my buddy Lauro came through. He wasn't just saying the shit just to be saying it. Queen My Art Girl TV still has a notification. I didn't know that we wasn't ever cool. What you doing? Can I continue my bill? Because what we're talking about is the compromises of settling for chump change and pennies. But if you look across the board and look at the screen, I am showing you the examples of the argument and what we're fighting for. And I'm giving you 1910 data where 14% of all U.S. farms and from 16 to 19 million acres were held by African Americans. The only thing is she just told you on their side 250 million acres went to the white families, and that they descendants, the rate there anyway, we'll keep it flowing. Contrast that data with the 2012 showing the 98% decline in black held U.S. farms. The struggle is real despite the discrimination, but the 2% families of black families that are still fighting for their land and their land rights, nigga, fight on, nigga. And the bill is on the table right now as we speak. And so the question, why blacks have less land than they did 100 years ago, that's still just a deflection, nigga. We already know that. Read. Why blacks have less land than 100 years ago. This was according to Market Watch, June 19th, 2020 report, undercounting likely. One of the major criticisms, family members settling for pennies on a dollar for inherited land. The Market Watch report highlights USDA's well-documented history of discrimination against black farmers, ranging from the New Deal and USDA discriminatory practices dating from the 1930s to the 1950s. The third call out from their position is what debaters refer to as a bait and switch tactic. The authors shift the focus from acres of farmland owned to home ownership gaps. And then they cite incidences of redlining. Finally, they leverage median household income wealth nationally between 1983 and 2013, saying median black household wealth decreased by 75% to $1,700 for black families, while median white household wealth increased 14% to $116,800. So the bait and switch tactic, if you missed it, was taking it off of our land ownership and how that was being smacked, and then taking it to the level of, well, look at the home ownership and look at these other ones. No, nigga, let's deal with that land. If I could sum up my whole debate, it's best captured in this very memeish headline from Tom Philpott. On the left and on the right, the numbers don't lie. White people own 98% of rural land. Young black farmers want to reclaim their share. That's what's on the table right now. And that's what we're talking about, but we have to be distracted. And this ain't just virtue signaling. The magnitude of the discrimination that we face could be summed up by their side, which is on the right, Senator Chuck Grassley, Farm Bill and Subsidy Policy testimony. He says, in 2012, the amount of land utilized by farms, according to the Agri Census, was 950 million acres. And so historically, we were at about, man, I hate going back. I told you already where we were and where we peaked. And even then, it's because we settled for chump change and pennies on a dollar. Peace, George Macon. American Farmland Trust policy update. Senators Booker, Warren, and Gillibrand released Justice for Black Farmers Act. On Monday, Senators Warren, Booker, Gillibrand introduced the Justice for Black Farmers Act in the Senate. This 78-page bill, summarized below, seeks to address centuries of discrimination in the agriculture sector against who? Black farmers. Who? Black farmers. Who? Black farmers. Nigga, they couldn't have spelled it out any better for niggas. That's right now. And ranchers. Because some people need that whole homestead, not just one little segment of a section. Give it to me. I know what to do with it. The legislation would help existing and aspiring Black farmers. The legislation would help existing and aspiring Black farmers. You can stop right there. How many times do they gotta say Black farmers? Nigga, if you want your homestead, nigga, that should be what we talking about. Once called naive for his focus on returning land to Black farmers, Thomas Mitchell is now a MacArthur Fellow. A who? A MacArthur Fellow. A who? A MacArthur Fellow. I'm just gonna read the headlines. Black farmers have been robbed of land. A new bill would give them a quantum leap toward justice, according to who? Mother Jones. Now, in my neighborhood, and I believe in probably most Black neighborhoods, there was a Mother Jones who says effectively precluded African Americans from participating, said Thomas Mitchell, a law professor at Texas A&M and a 2020 MacArthur Fellow. And so I'm gonna show you who he is. Big Docs, Thomas Wilson Mitchell. Tommy Wilson, or in other words, Uncle Tom ass nigga. The Educated Lame, the Heirs Property Program, Texas A&M professor Thomas Mitchell. A Genius Grant, considered to be among the most prestigious prizes in academia, he just received. The distinction comes with a $625,000 no strings attached stipend. Talk about direct transfers. Show me a good Black man. All right, let me tell you about one who's actually fighting for something, and whether you agree that it's going to help the collective or not. Since the Eagle be roasting niggas, and that's why I don't think they ready for this conversation. They're underprepared. Texas A&M law professor Thomas, for example, he's a bit of an Uncle Tom if you ask me, but here's what he's working on and what makes it good for the Black community. The nigga co-sponsored the bill that's on the floor right now for justice for Black farmers. It's talking about Black farmers and aspiring Black farmers. B1 Brother Moses presented that shit on the B1 network. Here's what it was talking about. That shit go all the way back to the 1800s. And before he did it, he said, we've been focusing too much on pussy and not enough on Black politics. But the majority of people don't fall under that Black nationalist banner. They American. They on the right. But Black nationalism, if you go through the South and you want to find an establishment that's Black owned and it's about land or it's about business ownership, it probably has the name nationalism attached to it. If you go through the South and you want to know if it's some crackers and you don't have your green book out, nigga, it's probably got the name American to it. Somebody put a fire sign in the chat or something. I'm giving you the nuggets of Black leadership executed on a global scale, but let's keep this shit American. Booker, Warren, Gillibrand announced comprehensive bill to address the history of discrimination in federal agricultural policy. Don't let B1 Brother Moses tell you. I'll give you his website, Cory Booker. I stretched it and added the screenshot because it was a day after my birthday. Sorry, I big docs them and I big docs myself. Nigga, look me up if you don't think I'm a good source. Washington, D.C. today, U.S. Senator Booker, you know how they like to write about themselves. Let's get back to the policy. The Justice for Black Farmers Act will enact policies to end discrimination within the USDA, protect remaining Black farmers from losing their land, provide land grants. And that's why I've been telling you, I'm not giving you vague, condescending information when I say these niggas, when I say they got the white man in their head. No, I'm giving you the Black men who are on a mission right now and showing you our collective benefit of the Black men on a mission in all my examples. All of these motherfuckers. The one that I started with. The black farmers, they're losing their land, provide land grants to create a new generation of black farmers and restore the land base that has been lost and implement systemic reforms to help family farmers across the United States. They said black enough for me to dismiss the fact that they pivot back over to everybody can benefit. And the nigga said black 3 times. What more do they need to say? There are, Cynthia G, Bald Eagle, 45,500 black agricultural producers. That was the number that I was able to come up with. What are they actually producing? They comprise 1.3% of the total number of producers. So yeah, we getting our ass whooped. And 60% of these black farmers are holdout family members, still fighting for their inheritance-related land ownership claim. That answers the question, right? That's all she was really asking for, and the nigga ran from it. Oh, let me give you a source. John Boyd Jr. is the president for the National Black Farmers. So again, in the South, if you're looking for black ownership, it's probably attached to nationalism. That's the flag that we actually do carry. And those are the black men you're referring to. Those are the black families that you're referring to. He is the president of the National Black Farmers Association. And he said major changes within the agricultural department and leadership by the agriculture secretary could help Biden's administration better serve black agriculture producers. And so they want to be like they want to consult like the same way the dude wants to consult with detachment. We consult on real shit. And so then if you're on the right, which is where we argue against, that's Zippy Duvall, the president of the American Farm Bureau Federation. Now that's the 98%. Those are the ones fighting to get even more of black ownership land and to keep policies in place to where white farmers can benefit, where they get paid to not grow shit, and we still ain't even got our 40 acres while they're paying them not to even grow shit. Like, how unproductive is that? How uncapitalistic or how un-American is that? But I tell you like this, head to head, black farmers have been awarded pennies on the dollars compared to white family farmers. Marginalization doesn't negate evidence of the claim. We are in fact in that thing though. For those black men of the National Black Farmers Association, that's my B1 salute as we continue to move forward in this presentation, because I want to share information that we can relate to. Taz just got done debating somebody that kind of looked like this nigga with, now this nigga got hair though. He was bald. He kind of looked like this nigga. So I didn't know whether to take that debate as a joke or whether he was serious. The analogies he was using, I can't rock with. But this is where I'm at with it. And let me change the music because I'm finna get deep. My nigga O'Shea Duke Jackson is in the building. My guy. Bang, bang. Hold on, man. I gotta do the music a little bit more justice with that. I like this one then, because let's hit him with the Spanish Trench. Can we hit him with, nah, not the Spanish Trench. They don't need the Spanish Trench. I got a beat in here. I did business with the brother. That beat is one. It's called 48 Laws by Ramil Amir. That one's pretty good too. I think I bought 2 from him when I bought the 1. Let's do Caesar, because at this point it's starting to feel like they are feeling more aligned with the right side of the argument. And you hear that in their talking points when they talk about I'll say it this way. Hey, my baby. It says, we read beyond the headlines. HBCUs endowed by an additional $500 million. We might not see that that's still pennies on a dollar political gains as a victory if we fail to recognize what a good agricultural and mechanics degree, or even a master's degree in agribusiness, what that comes to, the land grant. If the bill is not approved and black farmers and aspiring black farmers don't get the land grant, then what good is having that motherfucking degree? Feel me? You are no good with that degree as the nigga. Man, let me shout out my neighborhood. The nigga still standing in Del Paso Heights 10 toes down on the corner where it used to be the gas station. But they shut that shit down because it popped too hard. See, B1 Brother Moses wants to give you specific claims because ADOS is the conversation that they're deterring us from. And do you identify with ADOS identity politics? They say we have a land-specific claim, and so I'm trying to find a motherfucker. I'm doing research from the National Park Services and the Network to Freedom, nigga, discovering the Underground Railroad history to say, nigga, where? Satire, nigga. I'm like, nigga, where is the claim? Nigga, where? Like when he asked the question when, I'm like, nigga, and where? Find the underground education, not just the education, not just reading books about it. How do we get to that first part of the process, which is the application? They talk about land grants, so you need approval. You seek approval. You seek approval. Nigga, approval, nigga. Nigga, my permit is legit, man. I got a proven track record of being a grower with a green thumb. My capitalist endeavors were the things that were politicized. And so there's a lot of information there. I did want to make sure that I was sharing my source. As you see, it hit the screen, man. National Underground Railroad Network. Yeah, that's just a different B1 type of community you could join. But back to the brothers at hand, since she says contemporary black folks. And I'm just telling you that B1 Brother Moses can go with Sinji. If she asked me that question, these niggas be bowing. The National Black Farmers Association applauds it at first. John Boyd, the founder and president. Just the headlines. National Black Farmers Association congratulated Biden. Biden's agriculture secretary pick disappoints black farmers. See, at first it was, all right, cool. Discrimination. And then they appoint this motherfucker here when he had the option of putting a black woman on there. But we're in a space where bashing black women is the thing. Okay, got it. Problematic rhetoric on media is hurting us right now because they obviously don't know that Big Mama said keep the farm in the family. Black farmers, civil rights advocates seething over the Vilsack pick. We get hot. And that's what real niggas was mad about. Where are the Garden State's black farmers? But the connection surfaced toward a black woman whose parents are from that lineage. Oh yeah, it gets pretty deep. It gets so deep for me that I start you off in a presentation about 1800 white art and how they put that as the white woman's burden just to confiscate every political argument niggas ever had. So let me get this straight. Not only did they seize the land and massacre, but now we got to forgive them and say, nah, man, I don't even want no claim. I wouldn't even put in I would feel bad as a nigga for putting in that application. That's what we're supposed to be doing, huh? Huh? That's what we're supposed to be doing, not Omohundro, not keeping it 100, but the Omohundro Institute, not keeping it 100, but the Omohundro Institute. Type sources, mapping the Republic of Letters. There at Stanford, if you like the right, when we say who is the right. The networks of Benjamin Franklin, not 100, but Omohundro Institute. Benjamin Franklin letters we need to study. That's what we're doing with this. Nah, man, I'm taking it straight to that Ion magazine. How were 1.5 billion acres of land so rapidly stolen? It establishes trust on the spot when the information I'm spitting is on fire. Does it make sense with the audience still? Like, out of everything that we could be looking at, the answer in the question was, nigga, how did they, 1.5 billion acres of land, how did niggas let them steal that, nigga? Pre-Columbian black presence in the Western Hemisphere goes back, farming even goes back 500 years before coronavirus existed here, before all of this shit. But I'll just give you the facts. The Omohundro Institute. The William and Mary Quarterly is the leading journal of early American history and culture. Founded in 1892, which is why I gave you the art that informed the timeline of 1892. and published by the Alejandro Institute in Williamsburg, Virginia. And we know this Virginia library, if we're talking about the right, goes as far back as Rome. But we'll just keep this shit on topic since niggas run from that slave conversation and make it about cortisol. Nigga, my cortisols go up. It is one of the oldest academic journals in the United States and was one of the first 10 archived on JSTOR, which is the academic journals. Today, the quarterly ranks among the most cited journals covering a specific time and place and is one of the most respected and most acclaimed historical journals in the world. I won't just use them. I'll give you my own research from when I was looking at national parks and shit and historic places, like what is our actual claim? Rock with me and I'm gonna keep you on point. If you look at my slides, I am preserving our story at the same time as I was walking them down from Atlanta, Georgia. Chickamauga Creek. How did we lose 1.5 billion acres land to answer the question, while at the same time Sherman Reservation is the 40 acre and a mule argument? It's just so much to keep them on point where niggas had to mark their X. Contributing 6. Like, what kind of property is they talking about? Like, you are owed a claim, a specific claim. Is your claim buildings? Is your claim sites? Black man, is your claim the structures? Is your claim the objects? What is the total claim that you are asking for when you're talking about land grants and shit? What is the number of contributing resources that you want to register as a nationalist? Because I told you if it's black, it says national. That's just the flag that that's the banner that applicable National Register criteria. Mark your X in one of the more boxes for the criteria. There was an application. And first, we just got to find out where the fuck our application is. Nah, but they want me to look away and not have this conversation. This is a commemorative property to my ancestors. That's an option. What is it? It's architecture at its finest. Period of significance, 1863 to 1942, bottom right corner. Big docks. But they don't want us to listen to our ancestors now. They don't want us to be men when they say, nigga, the women should lead and Cynthia G needs to give me a solution. My research goes back to Sherman's March to the Sea. And I reserve the right to include historical analysis because it's still relevant to the 40 acres and a mule. As an olive branch to the Indian YouTuber, the legendary Big Chief Top Cats, my B1 salute. I tell you, the argument that black men don't deserve reparations is mute, and that black men aren't building is also mute. And then we'll have the debate to stimulate conversation. But I'm going to be using historical analysis to make my point, like Sherman's March to the Sea, Savannah, because it is Sherman's reservation. When I show you Hilton Head Island, and when I show you the 40 acres and a mule zoomed all the way down using modern technology on a land and 2,400 square foot home-based argument versus potatoes or rice. Now, we ain't talking small potatoes. I'd use the historical analogy to make my point with Sherman's March to the Sea, because at the end of the day, our sisters are asking the question. Irene disconnects because she says, nigga, when is you niggas gonna do some real fighting? Your respect is not established amongst the men of the world because the men of the world are still waiting on you to bust a grape, and not talking about the ownership of vineyards unless you're one of those families who owns vineyards. Sherman's March to the Sea has the image encapsulated of us on the far right when we were in this position as Republicans. And my brother Rob said we need to talk about who exactly is on the right. Just thought I'd point that out. But the narrative description, this big doc, amends the original National Register of Historic Places listing for the Chickamauga and the Chattanooga National Park, excuse me, Freudian slip. October 15th, 1966, and documented July 25th, 1986. So the changes start happening to land ownership. And this is the documentation. It evaluates the significance and integrity of structural resources within the park units. Okay, so we need to be able to go in and say whether or not the water still works in some of these national historic sites, commemorative places, graveyards. It is not intended as an evaluation of the significance of the park as an archaeological site or sites. An additional amendment to the National Register of Historic Places documentation for the park is needed in order to adequately evaluate archaeological significance. Description of Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Park. Why am I even using William T. Sherman? Because again, this Chickamauga Chattanooga Park was the first national military park in the United States, and it roots us in 40 acres and a mule. Black first. But the setting, and this is why I shout out my guy, they can tell you where it was in Georgia, Missionary Ridge, Orchid Knob, Lookout Mountain, if you already know your genealogy and can trace those people back to the Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then he traces it to the prior to the battles in 1863. The land that today comprises the National Military Park was dotted with small farms and settlements. And that's why this conversation is important about homesteads and townships and black-owned towns. And nigga, what happened? And it's also why it's important to include the Indian. Like Top Cat. His information is valid. He also says if it wasn't farms and settlements, it was wooded. It was a wooded landscape. And then he does what I typically hear my brother legendary Top Cat do. He says, following the War of 1812, which is important. If you don't know the research, look up the War of 1812. The population of Georgia-Tennessee region expanded as farmers settled in the Tennessee River Valley to grow crops such as corn and raise livestock. The growth of the Chattanooga as a major railroad transportation hub further influenced settlement in the vicinity. The Lafayette Road, with origins as a Native American trade route and now known as U.S. Highway 27, became the chief north to south route connecting the smaller farms in North Georgia, which markets and transportation to Chattanooga. Black farmers. But when you look at that Sherman's March, this is where they situate us, is that refugee status in 1863, while simultaneously dismissing the right, if you were asking about the Black Republicans, to bear arms and how that had to be seated, get down or lay down style. So our sisters ask the question, they say, nigga, when you gonna start defending your farms? And I think it's a very valid question. We know defense comes with this politics, but as long as that's a valid question and she's asking a black man should not bow down from that conversation. Nigga, she asked that nigga, was he a man? Because she at some point just gave up with the fact that she thought she was talking to the black man. And unfortunately, that black man had just diminished his own value to the point where it was like there's nothing left that our sister could do with that nigga. B1 Brother Moses will give you the historical facts, documents, and data, and all the way down to the real talking point. And he ran from that. And 1863, remember, is now you're dealing with freed men, not slaves. But he didn't even want to have the slavery conversation. Nigga, you an embarrassment, which is why you need better content and better information. Freed men, question mark, demands for 40 acres and a mule, the Homestead Act, land grants were met with the disarmament of the black man and political resistance. And then it was met with right resentment during the Reconstruction and after the establishment of the Federal Housing Administration and all of that. Establishing of an authority, nigga. Not too many brothers are going to be able to give you this thorough of an analysis just to prove a point to Cynthia G. So I hope y'all is actually listening to this stream, nigga. Listen, her analogy is that niggas ain't able to go bar for bar, but it just take Brother Moses too long. I got to put on music and just let the stream build to do this shit. The 5 civilized tribes is what most niggas can relate to. Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee, and Seminole. That's what they can relate to. The tribal territories, as you see, have been outlined in different colors. But if you look at these colors on the map in 1804, since Brother Top Cat is giving you 1812, I'm gonna just give you 1804. Check out 1812 if you want to know that war and what happened there, or the 1860s war and what happened there. But we ain't gonna run from the conversation. No, hell nah. I would rather first show you the tools that I use to drill down on that conversation and name you the exact tribes that lost that land and give you the exact year they lost that motherfucking fight before I back down from that intellectual conversation, nigga. I would rather show you it on a plain ass map than to just back down from the conversation. Nigga, the Seminoles is who some people can talk about when it comes to resistance. When it comes down to the niggas fight back. Well, don't let B1 Brother Moses tell you. I'll just give you the resource I use, the Underground Railroad history, the nominated cemetery site. I said it's about protecting our grave sites and the grants and shit. The nominated cemetery site. So it's a nomination process once you've established that there is an exact claim. Listen to B1 Brother Moses. I'm gonna give you some fire, but I just may not get the fire emojis for it. Seminole Scouts, located outside the Black Seminole Scouts, excuse me, because some people think that it's not if you just say Indians, and so it's for B1 Brother Moses to use the tools and resources available to all debaters and show you the Black Seminoles. Just in case they say, no, that's Indians, you're not talking about black men. Right? Don't let her move the goalpost, but you can't. Nigga, fight back, nigga. And this one, get this. It shows the migratory patterns and shit, that these trade routes and shit was already long established. Fight me right now, man. Appreciate it. Damn, man. Hopefully it come back, cause I ain't done cooking, nigga. Persecuted by the U.S. Army and slave hunters, the Black Seminoles and their families had traveled on the Trail of Tears from Florida to Indian Territory in Oklahoma and finally to Sonora, Mexico, where they were finally free from persecution and re-enslavement. By this time, the Seminole Maroons had gained a reputation on the U.S.-Mexican border as fierce fighters and Indian trackers. After the Civil War, they were asked by the U.S. Army to return to Texas and serve as scouts at the Fort Clark Reservation at Brackenville. Nigga, so what's Bracken? What's Bracken? I thought I would just be able to have a conversation and ask the brother, man, what's Bracken? Because most, when you break it down to the 5 tribes, can tell you that there were the 5 tribes, but they wouldn't be able to name them all. So let me put it on the screen for them one more again and show you them on the map using the tool. And this is where the land was, and the people, the black men who had to actually fight these battles. 0.5 billion acres of land. And it's just gonna take me some time to show you all that, but I'd rather use visualizations. Now, I don't have notes for this section. I only have notes for the section that gotta gear them up and get them ready, because it's gonna be some heavy information, man. This isn't a victory lap. This is presenting the information that we really hate. This is the part of the story that niggas would hate to tell. This is the L. Excuse me, Muskogee is the big L, the Muskogee. Muskogee, you must be a G. I don't care how you pronounce it. This is an L. This is a big ass L. And this L is right above the L the Seminoles took. Treaty with the Creeks, 1814. Lapacine or Ashananqua, Osage. How do you pronounce their names, legendary Top Cat? Masheka Liata. Sheka Liata. Sheka Liata what, nigga? The big man. His ex. Cinema Bonga or Stone Eater signed his ex mark. Neshpatah or Double Tooth, his X mark. Me Too Zania or Indian, his X mark. Niggas was signing their X. Kilswa or Sun, his X mark. Wabsia or White Skin, his X. Mashan, Panache, Lakeisha, Tanisha, some DMX shit. All signing their X mark. But what I just did was I gave you a date. The actual treaty was signed. 8/9/1814 for the Muskogee and that big ass L. People, the visual went right over their head. They saw the L, but they didn't get what I was doing right there. The U.S. demand an equivalent. The U.S. demand an equivalent for all expenses incurred in prosecuting the war to its termination by a secession of all the territory belonging to the Creek Nation within the limits of the U.S., lying west by south and southeastwardly of the line to run as follows, beginning at a point on the eastern bank of the Coosa River, where the south boundary line of the Cherokee Nation is. Well, hold on. I'll wait. Oklahoma Gazette, because they want better sources than B1 Brother Moses. When he looks into the faces of his ancestors in a fuzzy black and white photo, this is the image that I was using, so it's education for those people who say copyright and copyright. This is what we're doing, and many of these are Library of Congress. But there are some websites that I use to drive these points home. But Ron Graham, he sees Creek Indians in the faces of those black and white photos. Despite the treaties passed 150 years ago, which is their argument, the treaties, they violated treaties, we can't trust them, but they don't show the actual treaties or the information and the people signing their X. Now, they don't want to talk about that. But that's the doc. The Muskogee Nation, he was working tirelessly to correct what he sees as long-standing injustices against the people known as Creek freedmen. Creek freedmen? Why you say Creek freedmen? My main goal is to be fully recognized as a Creek citizen within the Creek Nation. See, again, if you in the South and you black, nigga, you conform to, I'm gonna say it one more time and I'm gonna let y'all know, you're probably nationalists. Why bring up the Indians? They got their reparations. That's not our issue. Ours is breaking down the story of reparations. Nigga, if you can't provide documents for your claim, then what are you talking about? You'll never get to the actual claim and the property and the art, architecture and all of that shit if you're not willing to do the real research. That's my point. That was a long ass soliloquy, but I'll give it to you again. Soliloquy is entitled Dear Sellouts. And because of that, I'm going to change the music and I'm going to actually go to the Ramil 48 Laws of Power. Let me see where it's at. There it is. There it is. Dear sellouts, our history lessons aren't just about what we have tried and what we can learn from. Nonviolent political strategy as a response to violence with prejudice and discrimination, and then the land grants that come after it, are an approach black men are still fighting for to this very day. So what happens? Nonviolent political strategy means these may have all the guns they need to enort force, and rather than meet force with force, niggas go to the negotiating table like bitches. And in that, they ask for a specific claim. And in that claim, it's been land grants. And in a publication by the Oklahoma Gazette, there is a story of a man named Ron Graham who is doing the same thing. He says, when he looks into the faces of his ancestors and the fuzzy black and white photos of his presentation materials, Ron Graham sees Creek Indians. But despite treaties passed 150 years ago, Graham is not part of the Muskogee Creek Nation. And so he's working tirelessly to correct what he sees as long-standing injustices against the people known as the Creek Freedmen. My main goal, this is according to Mr. Graham, the black man, the Black Creek Indian, Muskogee, that guy who went all the way back to the actual treaty and the land grants. This is what he's working on. That guy, if you needed a source, and it's still on point. He said, my main goal is to be fully recognized as a Creek citizen within the Creek Nation. We tell you, nigga, you black, nigga. All you gotta do is understand that, nigga, and stop fighting against it. Nigga, you black, your mama black, your grandma black, nigga. But I'll keep going. Graham, descendants of freedmen of the 5 Civilized Tribes Association genealogy chairman. Now, somebody drop a bow in the chat, man. If somebody's rocking with me, I gave you the black president of the Farmers Association. I gave you the white president of the association saying these niggas is fighting for those. I went into a long ass soliloquy about the Native Americans and treaties just to entertain the conversation, just to do what? Show you the black man facing injustice from the Creek Freedmen using the same shit today. And he's the president of that same 5 Civilized Tribes Association. That's 3 sources. If you don't like what I'm providing, then nigga, I'm just not cut for you. And there's a battle going on. And so we tell you, even though we rock with Brother Top Cats, we got a battle. And Brother Top Cats said, yeah, nigga, we do. He understands he understands it. And he can have the intellectual battle without bowing down. We want our treaty rights, human rights, and birth rights restored. That is first and foremost. All or nothing, which is another segment in this report. Let me see if it clicks for us. There it is. I built it into my presentation. Graham's work on behalf of freedmen descendants began in 1983, not long after he graduated from the high school that still bears the name of probably one of his biological ancestors, but yet he's being denied the right to his claim. His father, Theodore Blue Graham, was on the Dawes Rolls, the registration system created for the allocation of lands to heads of households. Ideally, Brother Moses will tell you that it was black men and 40,000 black men, and then those claims that were denied, that's the rolls that we were talking about. We know that one was created for a registry for Indians. What we're saying is the registration and application process for black men is the one where we've been fighting that injustice for over 150 years. And it is not seeking the white man's approval to say we want our shit back, B. And that farming lifestyle may not be for everybody. I'm not saying that it is, but that doesn't negate the right to that black man's claim. And that arguing against that black man's claim to that ridiculous when at the highest levels of our politics, as high as we're able to get it with this non-violent solution, which is politics, the highest point we can get to, the senators themselves and the presidential candidates and the chairman and presidents of that struggle, the non-violent path, all of that conversation is dismissed with the pathology of incels. My bad. Graham, born in 1902, received Creek roll number NB671. So he's dropping the documents and the receipts. Can a nigga? Oh, I got my status, but then we go back and hit him with history. Chickasaw. Because some people could tell you about the 5 civilized tribes, but that's not far enough. Now, I give you the best source that we could probably go to, and they won't argue that point because I'm dropping facts. And the whole Chickasaw Nation, by their chiefs, headmen, and warriors, remove all ground of complaint or dissatisfaction that might arise to interrupt the peace and harmony which have so long and so happily existed between the United States of America and the Chickasaw Nation of Indians. James Monroe, president of the state of said United States, by Isaac Shelby and Andrew Jackson of the one part, and the whole Chickasaw Nation by their chiefs, their headmen, and warriors in full council assembled of the other part, have agreed on the following articles, which, when ratified by the President and the Senate of the United States of America, shall form a treaty binding parties. But they don't want to talk about that. But for me, this is for when they say for the descendants of, they talking about me, whether they think they're talking about Indians or whether they think they're talking about a descendant of a slave. I can read through the fine lines of the 150 years ago when they're bringing up slavery. I could read through the fine lines of that. I just can. And for the learning, like I would send this information to, not just share the source, but show you how you can actually embed the source in your own website for people looking to do their own research on your website. Since you have 400 people that'll watch you live, B1 Brother Moses might have 8 people that can listen through one of these long ass streams, but it'd be fact upon fact upon fact. And hopefully it's still rocking with the kid, man, as they keep killing my live stream. But they could kill it, and it's just gonna make me turn up. That was just a cue for me to change music, man, because I'm going in on my brothers who sold out that actual land. And I know people say, Brother Moses, that's a low blow, man. You dropping facts that could be used against us. No, I'm dropping facts for how niggas can actually weaponize this information. Appreciate you, Cherry. Thank you for rocking with me. See, they can talk the 5 civilized tribes, but they're not going to show you the Choctaw. You might be able to trace your genealogy to Mississippi, to right outside of Jackson, Mississippi. And you can trace your genealogy there, and you know good and damn well, if you've been back in a while, that there are some lands that, if under your ownership, could be vastly improved. Maybe that's your vision. I don't know. I don't know where you at on your journey. And so with that, I'll just get deeper into these documents that they don't want to talk about. Like Rebecca Hackley, a half-blooded Miami, one section of land. Remember how we broke it down? We showed you the entire homestead, the mile times 1 mile. That's the BLM, is 1 mile by 1 mile. One section was given to Rebecca Hackley, a half-blooded Miami, when this treaty went down. To William Wayne's Wells, a half-blooded Miami, one section of land at the mouth of, and they tell you exactly where it is. See, they were actually staking claims, a boundary line of the grant to Ann Turner. Rebecca, to include 320 acres. Becky? But we still got to argue about the Cherokee then. We still need that information. And I'll give you another example or another soliloquy to keep you rocking. Back using Where's Your Source? Oklahoma, Batesville News, July 11th, 1839. Runaway from the subscriber on the 9th installation, a Negro boy named Tom, or this Uncle Tom again, just to make sure my PowerPoint. About 22 years, because Tom, again, is the guy who wrote the bill that Booker and them off. Yeah. Tom is Texas again, remember? Tom is Texas. He is a light complexion and is supposed to be part Indian. I just want to make sure we keep this shit relevant, that I use sources that keep the conversation in flow. El Boogie says, I don't understand the argument. He stole a small black mare pony with a star on her forehead and is supposed to have went off with an Indian named Washington Eaton, who was in the neighborhood and was missing at the same time. It is supposed they intended going to the Cherokee Nation. Any person who may apprehend said boy, little Tom, and get him to me or place him in jail where I can get him shall be liberally rewarded. Rufus Stone, Newport Jackson, County, Arkansas. This is a quick story about little Tom who tried to run away to the Cherokees as all of that 1.5 billion acres of land was being confiscated. See, my opinion is backed by related treaties, and the source of the evidence is the Indian Affairs, laws and treaties. And on this case, when they say what happened, it is the treaty with the Cherokees, 1835, to back up this settlement of land debate. How do we settle on the land issue? Tells you right here that there was some smoke. And then it goes all the way down to the books. Tract description provided by the Smithsonian Institute. And man, I hope y'all like that, man. That was the boy Ramil who actually produced that track. And for me, I actually don't mind it. But again, did we get to Caesar? That should remind me, done it all, done it all, done it all, done it all. All right, man, so another War of 1812 type argument then. We're talking about Federal Reserves and who gets the rights to those greenbacks. President Lincoln issued $450 million directly from the U.S. Treasury. These debt-free, interest-free notes were known as greenbacks. And this is what niggas needed as they were fulfilling those land grants. You had to get paid in something, right? And so in our struggle for greenbacks, as we cultivate the land and build communities, safe spaces for our children, we knew what we were up against even then, the arming of white men and how we would have to defend ourselves against it. And so the story of 1812, or the War of 1812, is then precipitated by what most people have been told, the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. Now remember, this is still in context. It builds up to the Cherokee Nations and that South boundary line. That seminal boundaries when we're talking about the establishment of Louisiana now. And that Trail of Tears where they had to run through all of that shit to get to Oklahoma. And so Tom found himself, who was a mixed race, who found mixed Indian, Black Cherokee, Black Seminole. And we telling you the story as we walk them down. We walking them down, LB, together. From this Trail of Tears. So let me give you another one. Since they like talking about war, and the ultimate argument is going to be, well, black men fighting black men fighting back, and then black men fighting back. Let me say it the way that I want to say it. Black men fighting black men. There it is. Typo. Black men fighting black men. Or excuse me, the Portuguese, if they call them the Black Europeans. Or excuse me, the Black Indians, the Black, whatever they want to call them, the Black Irish. But there was some sellout shit happening, and niggas don't want to talk about that shit. And my evidence says we can get all the way down to where these sellout activities was literally pennies on a dollar, chump change and pennies. Abraham Lincoln, pennies, nigga. What is this conversation talking about? Why are you even bringing up 1863? What are you talking about? Pennies on a dollar. B1 Brother Moses, I'm talking about the expansion of America, which included blacks from the shaded territories on the right of the 13 colonies. It included us. Yeah, niggas was a part of that migration at every period. You can even see where our presence was. I'm gonna start preaching. The shaded territory includes the Port Savannah. Man, let me get out of the emotion and start giving them the facts. 1815 expansion, the Alabama territory. If you look at what's happening on the right and then look at what happens on the left, I'm actually showing you the big ass tract of land there in Birmingham, all the way up to Birmingham, Alabama. You see what it does? You see that big ass land claim signing on the X, and what did that look like on the map? Since that's the only way the conversation will make sense to these. Show me, nigga, what is the solution? Is to educate these niggas that, nigga, you got land grant somewhere in this, something happened to your people, but you don't identify them as your people, and you identify that this isn't that's not what I'm saying here. Nigga, you think that the conversation about the Indians on the reservations is the full reparation story, so you can't see your ancestors. Let me teach, man. I'm gonna need him to let me teach. I don't know, man. It's just been dropping off. I told you the internet signal is a bit weak in this area, but they need to let me teach, man. They need to let me teach. They need to let me teach. It's not even about me at this point, because these reservations that we start seeing popping up, they can't see our story and connected with that. They lose sight of all of us when they make it about the reservations, nigga, from 1817 to 1829 reservation, i.e. the settlement, or this is how we settle the land grant issue. This is how we settle between men. This is the nonviolent solution, or the negotiated peace, or the restoration of peace, and as they would have called it, reconciliation. The restoration and then the reconciliation. Let me slow down. Salute, Great Black Shark. Appreciate you. 1820 expansion, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, and then it looks like North Georgia, really. So this is the one that actually speaks to what happened in the 1860s, in my opinion. This expansion right here is the one that really hurt, nigga. Like, there was a lot of them that hurt, nigga, but these ones, nigga, 1820, these ones. Losing this one and all of this right here. This one right here, January 1823 to January 1824. You see that big ass, the Seminoles. Now, I didn't just make the claim about Tom. I went all the way back and I showed you the evidence of the Tom who broke away to try to get to the Cherokee and establish that trademark there in Texas for black people to remember. Now, it might just be a cemetery to some, but to others, that's our story. We can show you the Arkansas 1824 expansion. They wouldn't come for this message, though. They don't want that information. They don't see that big ass blue block that went from black to white. They act like they don't want to talk about this right here, man. January 1826 to January 1828, Georgia, Tennessee expansion. That big ass blue block that goes from black to white. Remember, these are just small-time farmers again, following the War of 1812. The population of Georgia, Tennessee region. Did I walk you down and show you the actual receipts with the actual treaties? Can we move forward and establish credibility, or are we still stuck? I gotta watch my cortisol, bro. But he don't want to even talk about slavery, which means he definitely can't go all the way back and talk Lisbon versus First Colony. He can't rebuke somebody like the NFAC leader talking about the Portuguese or the Port OGs. Those black guerrillas really don't want to have that conversation. If he can't have a conversation with Senji and ends up being buck broken and asked, "Are you even a man?" by Senji, then he definitely can't address a Grandmaster J, the leader of a black militia, who says, nigga, Portuguese. So he can't talk Lisbon versus the first colony, or can he? See, in the recreation of American settlements or British settlements or French settlements, whatever you wanted. French settlements if you're Louisiana and you like the French quarters, like B1 Brother Moses just showed you the War of 1812, also linked to the Louisiana Purchase. You dig? Maybe they want the Spanish forts, which is that first fort right there, the first colony from the Spanish, since he's talking Portuguese. That black fort, and being able to go all the way from Florida. That is the furthest point you can get. The very first one from that Trail of Tears would originate there. From the colonizer argument altogether, no matter if your colonizer was Spanish, Portuguese, French, Dutch, Anglo-Saxon, German, or Black Irish. None of that shit matters. That's the first one if you're using any of that argument. That's the first one. Let me find out. I'm gonna put the actual sources on there. The replication is showing what you see on the left, trying to work to recreate that you see on the right. So those images on the right, that's the capital over there. The capital, and they wanted to recreate that, and that's on the hands of black labor, man. You know that, but you know black labor just has to settle for chump change on a penny. You know, the pennies on a dollar. Quakers, if you ask my boy, legendary Top Cat, he gonna give you the story about the French Huguenots, and that shit gets pretty deep. So Pedro Menendez de Aviles, ancient. Let me hit you with this one, man. I pull this shit together real quick, so don't mind me. Ancient Native American peoples entered Florida from the north as early as 12,000 years ago. I'll say it one more time. Ancient Native American peoples entered Florida from the north as early as 12,000 years ago. And then it went on to say, although the first evidence of farming dates from about 500 BCE, some southern groups remained hunters, fishers, and gatherers until their extinction. So they were farming. There's evidence of their farming that dates back about 500 years before Christ even exists, let alone before a Pedro Menendez de Aviles can bring some farmers. Oh, they needed black people because the black people could help with the farming. Indigenous people continue to have trade relations, as we already know, but they call it contacts with Cuba, the Bahamas, and possibly the Yucatan region of Mexico. And at the time of European contact, in the 16th century, a population of several 100,000 Native Americans lived in Florida. Several 100,000 already there, already farming, already trading all the way through and through. Up and down this motherfucker. 1.5 billion acres of land. Just to allow a Pedro Menendez from a villa in Spain. And people want to say the black Portuguese, died September 17th, 1574. The Spaniard who founded St. Augustine, Florida, which is that, and them trying to recreate it. So go to what they're talking about and make it plain. That guy is a classic example of a conquistador. He was a Spanish admiral and explorer from Aviles in Spain. He is notable for planning the first regular transoceanic convoys. That's what they get at, man. Somebody else was seeking gold. That dude said, let's systematize this. Pedro Menendez de Aviles, Spanish conquistador, who arrived in America at a time when ancient Native American peoples were in Florida, as many as several 100,000 of them, already farming and trading. And the admiral arrives and founds St. Augustine, 1565. first colony, our Spanish origins, for those Spanish people who just happen to lurk inside of the B1 network spaces. Was born into landed gentry. He ran away to sea at age 14. He the man, and he got to get out of his mama's house. In 1549, he was commissioned by the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, Charles V, Charles I of Spain, to be exact, to drive pirates from the coast of Spain. 5 years later, he was appointed captain of the Indies fleet, an impatient man who acted with dispatch and reluctantly concerned himself with the administrative details. Don't bring me all that small shit. He made numerous enemies, I guess you can say across the globe, who brought about his imprisonment. The people who he was making enemies with, they locked his ass up in a space and said, stay there, in 1563. So this pookie ass Pedro was freed 2 years later. So he did 2 years for causing international mischief as a pirate stopper, as a captain of a ship. Then, because he was set free for his crimes, he had a commute. He got out 2 years later and regained royal favor because King Philip II was disturbed by the potential threat to Spain's possessions from a settlement of French Huguenots, shout out Top Cats, on a strategic part of the Florida coast. He sent Menendez de Avilas to Florida to establish a colony there and to deal with the French. So we're making this claim about settlements and how do we settle our disputes between men. And this 14-year-old who goes and does a 5-year mischief campaign, gets locked up for 2 years, so now he's probably 21 years old, is sent to Florida against the several 100,000 under the guise of, well, the French Huguenots aren't listening to us. This Huguenot family is not bowing down. So the expedition sailed in July 1565 with 11 ships of about 2,000 men, which is the equivalent to what NFAC claims to deliver in their formations. On August 28th, he entered the bay St. Augustine, and he built a fort there. September 20th, he took the nearby French colony of Fort Caroline, and he massacred the entire population, hanging the bodies from the trees with the inscription, not as Frenchmen, but as heretics. Massacred everybody, all of them moving. And that goes as far north as the island of St. Helena. Now, if I showed you the island of St. Helena and told you about Sherman's reservation, you would know that Sherman's reservation, I'll move forward. Because instead of telling you that I've showed you this, I'll just show you this again in case this is your first time joining the B1 network. This coast is the same land that Abraham Lincoln was like 40,000 slave families keep following the armies, and we can't guarantee their protection. They met in Savannah, which you can see here. And the black men said, we need land. And it was a compromise, because Abraham Lincoln then signed the legislation for 160 acres while black men were going to be receiving the 40 acres and the mule, because black men said, and we will defend ourselves on our own land under our own terms. It is, in fact, Executive Field Order 15 that Sherman's reservation is referring. And in fact, it stretches all the way down to here, where the argument is the Spanish were putting up media saying, black men, run away, free yourselves, and join what was establishing this image right here. The call from the Spanish was that if they could just make it to Fort Augustine, this star at the top right of this settlement, this land grant, this is what they were working on, and this is the result of what black men built. Now, I'm not Pan-Africanist, but I'll tell you, for black men who want me to zoom in on Ghana and look at land development opportunities in Ghana, there are Google Earth tools that will allow me to do it, but I'd rather focus my camera lens in America, where a part of the bill is the funding for historically black colleges and universities, which is the basic argument about land grants. That's just basic. USDA's decisions, 1890 National Scholars Program. Now they talk about land retention and credit assistance, but I just tell you that was chump change on a dollar. And what I can't talk about is this censored psychopathy of black men who just keep running back to the black woman. It's her fault. Essentially, the making of Felicia's as an argument while we're issues. It's been an hour and 36 minutes. Hopefully there was something that you found value in. Chump change and pennies, man. B1 Brother Moses. That is all I got. So I'm out. Lessons over music, man. Hey, hit that like, hit that subscribe, man. Be sure to get the notifications if you hit the bell, because I don't go live on a consistent every day at 2 o'clock, or I don't have that format. But when I go live, it is because there's an energy that has been created, a masculine energy that needs to be shared. And I share that information with men. I got no premieres, Judah's Redemption, no premieres. Spontaneously, we can give them what they needed. These pornocrats and these pornocrat conversations about men and the women that didn't want to choose them, that has to die at some point. Our conversations cannot be about the white woman. And when she looked to the West, that was not permission or go ahead for the black man to be the one that she desired. The black man did not have to become this little, the minion or the little troll that was giving her the attentions and the affections that she wanted. Let me do this. Let me see if this should have run one more time, just to recap with a Black First perspective on the art that we shared to keep it educational. We're talking about Felician. Felician is a German. And so we use the Felicia as a tag word to remember that they on some Felician shit when they look at the desirability or sexual market value of women. And so we start there and see where Felician started in 1870 when she couldn't make her mind up. Look at her in the image on the left. That is like the epitome of a black woman trying to put on whiteface, or in what they're doing, they make the black woman who wants to be in whiteface, therefore she puts on weave and therefore she wants to be European. I say, no, man, our argument is always going to be with the black men. What are you worried about the woman for? That ostracization of the white woman is some Felician shit, as we see here in 1874. It's almost his jealousy coming out as she plays limbo on the banner of those upper echelon or high value circles. You see her social dynamic changed, and now she's the belle of the ball. You see, she even got a fan herself. This is that Southern white politic, or what you see happening with the black women inside of spaces like Louisiana, the Creole, and the envy that the Creole woman received. All of that ends up morphing into a black men desiring white women type of argument when she wasn't even there yet. All she did was rock on that horse in indecision and look to the West. But then there was the temptation of St. Anthony argument that they always use, that she is the seductress. And they use that one to the extent of even black girls are not that argument, saying consensual or black girls. When we brought that smoke about how they were looking at, I can't even say we, as my definition, Taz was the one who actually presented it, and then Irene, who they still mad at, nigga, that shit started with because how they were framing it. And they were saying the little girls who were included as targets for Jason Pope, those little girls to that white men were at fault because they be thotting it up, or this consensual argument. And they expanded on it in their defense by then going politics and saying, oh, it's the law that said it. No, nigga, the law amongst men, nigga. And that conversation, they then use that same consensual framework mind state and saying it's on the seductress to change, to absolve themselves of being men who see that we have land issues still unresolved. That's my point. And so we shift the conversation to this is what they could not get over, this scene in the middle. The moment they saw her showering, they became the minions that wanted to shower her with gifts. And so now the incel rages. They brought her the alcohol, they brought her food, take her out to eat, spend $75, and all of the things that a man would do if he becomes one of these smaller characters. One falling out of the sky to adjust that white woman's crown. But this is how Felician is painting this story. And I just like the analogy as you see it on the screen, Cythera's toilet. Oh, that's some Felician shit. And now they is not finna Felicia the sister, man. That's not finna happen. The crucifixion says it was her that took St. Anthony and wanted to crucify the man, because her natural desire was to be forced. And we tell them that rape culture is not just problematic, nigga, but you, like Lero came on the conversation. He's starting to build a rapport with people who have no problems with what they see happening in pornocratic, or I guess if you want to call it that, pornocratic imagery in social spaces, pornocratic media, sex doll types, Mr. Pipe's audience. Show the shift. And it's the same thing that they say. Now you could try to whine her and dine her, but don't save her, bro. She don't want to be saved, man. If that versus between Too Short and E40 didn't convince them, nigga, there's nothing that conversation is going to do. Not to someone who feels like they've been objectified to the point of the woman is now walking them on the leash and they are the pig. And if they're not the pig, they're one of the ignored angels just flying around for her attention as she walks blindfolded. Or maybe you're in that black sector and you see the type of body language that those characters are exhibiting. Pull the curtain back. Gave an overview in this time period that we're talking about the denial of the claims of land and then the white backlash that happened. And the media may not give them this deep, thorough analysis of their issues. See, they don't want to deal with daddy's abandonment issues. They want to talk about the single mother. They want the single mother to be on this cross. The single mama was supposed to save them and make all the right choices and be moral and upright. But they don't want to talk about what really happened behind the scenes. See, when you break this information down, in Temptation of Anthony, she was torn between two decisions. There was a right, there was a wrong. You see the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, the original person on the cross, through their religious symbolism. And then you see this devil imagery. And they're pushing this dichotomy between good and evil on both sides of the woman who is now being sacrificed by St. Anthony for not choosing a nigga like St. Anthony. And they would like to see themselves as a nigga like St. Anthony and not like the nigga sitting behind this thing, just spraying her down and cleansing her and washing this woman clean, absolving her. They say, why are you working to absolve the woman when the man is the one? They don't want to be the little minion sitting inside of this cage. They don't want to have to repress such hatred. And so they come to black spaces to vent. They need a safe space to talk Venus and Cupid. Nah, what I say is, brothers, that's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. And the illustration that they're depicting is one of a less diabolical solution, where they breed more men that want to go their own way, to the point of saying they are involuntarily celibate and in need of a safe space of celibate, afraid men, to where the men become the muse. And I'm just not willing to become that muse for this white screen. That's not the audience I cater to, not when you can put the psychological pathology of that whiteness in some of this art or in the damn wars that they fought and the massacres that they have always enacted. Nah, not when we have a nonviolent solution that's on the table talking about land grants for any aspiring farmer. And it has the name Black on it, which I know has to deal with me. If anything, the Black brother who feels like he wants to watch a young girl grow up, that when she turns 18, he can become her crucified savior sexually and set her free sexually, and that's his biggest accomplishment in the world, that man is not in our spaces. Nah, that man's on the other side. That man would have been the sellout in all of the stories that I've given you today. And that is the Black man for sale for up to $1,000 for the image of that pornographic information. Show them again in case they missed it. This ain't no victory lap. This is the worst type of information that we could be sharing, but we are forced to play that clown. We're forced to entertain it from the lens of the single white mother. Man, I need a shower after that. In my slideshow, bro. Log me off. Salute.